In 1957, when Kwame Nkrumah led Ghana to independence, the people of Ghana were jubilant and hailed him as a hero. During his reign of power, he was idolized as Nkrumah the Redeemer, or Nkrumah who never dies.
At long last, the battle has ended. And thus, Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever. From now on, there is a new African in the world. That new African is ready to fight his own battle and show that, after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. Now I want you all, those who have hats on, to take off your hats and let the band play our national anthem. And from now on, that national anthem is the national anthem of the Gogo, to be played on all occasions.
Years later, Nkrumah was severely criticized as a virtual dictator who imprisoned those who opposed him. Several other charges leveled were on the grounds of introducing the Preventive Detection Act, corruption, dictatorial practices, oppression, and lastly forcing into retirement the army's most senior officers, which according to the sources was the principal reason for the uprising.
Nkrumah has been severely criticized as a despot, a virtual dictator. The man who came from prison to wield such autocratic power has maintained it by imprisoning those who opposed him. In 1961, the Queen visited Ghana. Nkrumah's power politics were beginning to cause embarrassment to Britain, but he did seem genuinely concerned to build up the prestige of Ghana while remaining uncommitted to any of the main power blocs.
In February 1966, Nkrumah was encouraged by the U.S. to travel to China and Vietnam to attempt to broker a ceasefire in the Vietnam War. A group of senior officers gathered several hundred soldiers and moved them to Accra, telling them that Nkrumah was going to deploy them to fight in Vietnam. Aided by these men, the plotters, under Colonel Emmanuel Kotoka, seized the state radio and presidential palace, the Flagstaff House. Kwame Krumah left Accra on 21 February 1966. He was seen off at the airport by most of the leading government and party officials, and by service chiefs. He received handshakes and the expressions of good wishes from Harley, Deku, Yakubu, and others. In his words, these men, smiling and ingratiating, had all the time treason and treachery in their minds. They had even planned my assassination on that day, though they later abandoned the idea. The operation began in the early hours of Wednesday, 23 February 1966. The garrison at Kumasi, the capital of Ashanti region in Ghana, numbering 600 men, was ordered to move southwards to the capital, Accra. On the way, the convoy of some 35 vehicles was met and halted by the two arch-traitors, Colonel Emmanuel Kwesi Kotoka, commander of the 2nd Infantry Brigade Group, and Major Akwasi Amankwa Afrifa of the 2nd Brigade. Afrifa was left in command while Kotoka went to Accra to report progress to Commissioner of Police, J.W.K. Harley. He also sought to find some soldier better known than himself to be the nominal head of the revolt. The man chosen was Major General Ankra. The troops were then told that Nkrumah intended sending them to fight in Vietnam and in Rhodesia, and that he had deserted Ghana, taking with him £3 million. There was therefore no government left in Ghana, and it was their duty to assume control of the country to maintain law and order, they were told. It was also said that Russian planes were landing on a secret airstrip in northern Ghana. They were also informed that a secret tunnel had been made from Flagstaff House, the presidential residence, to Accra Airport, and for days Russians had been arriving. The only way to save Ghana, and to avoid being sent to fight in Vietnam, the troops were told, was to take Flagstaff House. The first objective of the military operation was to force the surrender of Major General Barwa, Army Chief of Staff and Deputy Chief of Defense Staff, who was in command of the Ghana Army in the absence from the country of the Chief of Defense Staff, General Aferi. Major General Barwa could not be intimidated. He was woken from his sleep in the early hours of the morning of the 24th by the arrival of Colonel Kotoka and some 25 men. He courageously refused either to join the traitors or to surrender. Thereupon, Colonel Kotoka shot him dead at point-blank range in cold blood. The 7 security officers who were stationed at Barwa's house were also murdered on the spot on Kotoka's orders.
The day of the coup, they were not aware what was happening. He was in his house when a telephone rang. Who rang? It was General Bawa, the one who was killed.
Okay.
His son. They always called the boy Captain, Captain, Captain. So Colonel said he was in his room when the boy rang around 1 a.m. or so. Dada, Colonel, some soldiers have come to they have taken my daddy away. Then the thing sound alarm to him. Though what, according to conversation we had, he said, what was happening? Then he got alerted. Not knowing those who are going to make the coup, they have already earmarked the people they are going to pick up, the people they are going to, kill before anything else. And Kanzaragu was also one of them, because he was the commander of the presidential guards. They are the fighting force, because they know without him, everything will be easy for them.
Cold chop.
Yes.
This stage of the operation was badly bungled. Hassan was arrested, but Zanlarigu, when confronted, escaped through a window of his house and drove to Flagstaff House to warn the Presidential Guard Regiment.
Apparently, Colonel Zanlarigu is a very experienced officer. He hasn't got his name tag on his bungalow.
But the rest all had their name tags on their bungalows?
As for him,
why didn't he have his?
For security reasons. So, when they pick up General Bawa and the boy alerted Colonel Zanlarigu that, they've come to pick my daddy. Some soldiers came. Then the thing sounded to him and said, what's happening? Then he became alerted. Then he put up his tracksuit. Before he realized, he had the soldiers looking for his house, because the name was not in front of the bungalow. They missed the house.
They missed it.
They missed it. So quickly, when he saw them, then he took cover. By then, there was fighting already in Flagstaff House. Okay. He was at the Dodowa Villas when this was happening. So according to him, he put up his tracksuit, jumped through the wall, then walked from Dodowa Villas through Elwak, then through Christ the King Church, just behind Flagstaff, Christ the King Church.
Yes.
It was there he realized that they were fighting, the soldiers were fighting his troop to overtake Krumah.
There were about 30 members of the Guard Regiment at Flagstaff House when the alarm was raised. These were soon joined by others who managed to slip in by a back entrance to reinforce their comrades.
Were there casualties by that time where had people been killed?
Well, I thought casualties for the advancing troops, those who were trying to overtake, there were casualties. Because the type of weapon they have, when they aim at the vehicle will bend together with other people. Oh. For that one, we have sophisticated weapons.
Then, when our vehicle overtake the ammo car just at the curve, then the fire started from Flagstaff House. In fact, look at the vehicle. We have almost more than 10 vehicles, foreigners. First shot, those people at the top, they finished them within a minute. My commanding officer, the platoon commander, was shot by his hand. Then we started dropping from the vehicle. When the vehicle were moving, straight to them across the chin, back of the church. You can't find our platoon commander to give us instruction. Our platoon sergeant, which was Sergeant Loso, she took over as a platoon commander and a platoon sergeant. And she gave us instruction to fire 111 into the Flagstaff House because nobody knew what's going on.
At the same time, Brigadier Hassan, head of military intelligence, and Colonel Zainarigu, commander of the Presidential Guard Regiment, and Owusu Sekiere, former head of the CID and in charge of the Special Branch, were to be arrested.
Colonel Kotoka had established a combined headquarters with the police at the police headquarters, and from there the order was given for the 2nd Battalion to go into action at Flagstaff House.
At this stage, a major problem was arising. The Presidential Guards were running out of arms.
The ammunition that the troops were using were almost exhausted. So he asked them to cool down.
Nkrumah have Russia army.
Okay.
It was Russia army who guided Nkrumah, plus Ghanaian soldiers called Presidential Guards Regiment, POGR. But any time Nkrumah is traveling, they use all the heavy weapons from Flagstaff to Shahis for reservicing. If Nkrumah is coming, they will bring the weapons back again. But lucky enough, they sent all the heavy weapons from Flagstaff to Shahis. Even also, it was very tough.
Now, when the Colonel Zainarigu took over his command with the people, hey, come and see. They were fighting this war until he needed reinforcement. This is where the problem came from.
You couldn't get reinforcements?
They sent message to Shah Hills for his second in command to come. Not only that man was bought.
He was bought?
He was bought.
Okay.
The coup will never have happened.
Who was that man?
Colonel Tete. No, Major Tete. Shah Hills. The same messages that they need reinforcement because most of our armament were kept
Had been sent there.
at that place. They were fighting until around 4 a.m.
Of the 25th? 4 a.m. of the 25th?
24th.
The 24th. Okay, it started quite at midnight.
It started midnight.
Okay.
It started 23rd midnight. So Colonel Zainarigu said he realized that the ammunition that they were using was getting exhausted. So he asked his people to control what they were doing. Then it came to a point that at that time they have a small radio with them. So all the announcement that was being, aired on radio GBC, they were listening to everything. So when they were fighting, the commentators were reporting what was happening, and they were also listening. So when he realized that there was little they could do without the reinforcement, they tried everything possible. This man refused to come.
The Guard Regiment fought on, though their position was now hopeless. The outside walls of the Flagstaff House had been opened, and the defenders had retreated behind the second gate. Still they refused to surrender.
Our platoon commander were shot by his hand, which is we couldn't see him again to give us instruction. Then the few people we are lucky in front, we try our best to manage to go to the Christ King, the back of the church. Yes. And then we are there for almost 6 in the morning by 5 o'clock up to 3:45 when the Canadonto brought a big ammo car to come and blast the wall. And they called us number 9 platoon to enter Flagstaff House.
Earlier in the morning, although heavily outnumbered, they successfully held up the rebel detachment sent to seize the Ghana radio station a short distance from Flagstaff House. Only 8 of the 124 detailed for this operation managed to get through. They captured the radio station, apparently without incident, and at 6 a.m. Colonel Kotoka arrived to broadcast that the army and police had taken over the government of Ghana. Fellow citizens of Ghana, I have come to inform you that the military, in cooperation with the Ghana police, have taken over the government of Ghana today. The myth surrounding Nkrumah has been broken. Parliament has been dissolved and Kwame Krumah has been dismissed from office. All ministers are also dismissed from office. The CPP is disbanded with effect from now. it will be illegal for any person to belong to it. The announcement was premature. At 7 a.m. resistance was actually increasing at Flagstaff House, as the defenders, less than 100 of them, fought fiercely back against some 600 rebel troops. It was only after the rebels threatened to blow up the family residence at the Flagstaff House in which Nkrumah's wife and 3 young children were sheltering that they finally gave in. But before giving in, they tried to smuggle Nkrumah's family to the Egyptian embassy. On their way, they got arrested by rebel forces.
So they surrendered?
Before they surrender, Colonel Zangu said, look, the president that were protecting was away, was not in the country. Now the only thing they could do now was to protect the family. That means Madam Fatia, Samia,
children,
Sekou,
and Gamal,
and Goke.
Gamal.
To protect them. So what he did was that, to see what was happening, he took a white blanket tied with a stick and hoisted it on one of the vehicles, two vehicles. One from they drove from Plaster House to Sankara. Is it Sankara Circle now? Akoje.
Yes.
One from Akoje to Circle, one from Akoje to Danko Circle, just to get the mind of what was happening. All this thing going on, Radio Ghana was announcing it. They were hearing everything on the set. So he found that, okay, in attempt to send Madam Fatia, Samia and the brothers to a safer place, what he could do was that then he ordered for the escort cars. Normally we have escort car. We have the one in the front, the one the person, and then the one behind, and the supporting one. So he asked them to lie them out to get ready. But then still yet, the soldiers they were still fighting. So by then he was in communication with the Egyptian ambassador.
Ambassador.
Yeah, because you know, Fatah naturally is an Egyptian.
Yeah.
To keep them, because they were run short of ammunition, and then the reinforcement that's supposed to have come from Shahil, because the guy was with the coup makers, so he would not budge an inch. So what he did was that he called the vehicles ready, and then asked escort to take Madam Fatia and the children to Egyptian embassy, which is very close to the Flagstaff House. You know, when you pass through Cross the King, that place. I mean, you go 2 hours after you're going there. It's not very far from Flagstaff House.
True.
So along the line, when the vehicle moved out from Flagstaff House, not only the soldiers, they took cover around Christ the King Church. The moment they saw Madam Fatia and children passing, they arrested them and they took them straight to police headquarters.
Accra Central? Or the one near Accra Central?
Police headquarters, the one on
the way to
the
Ring
Road.
Yes, Ring Road.
They took them to that place. You know the humiliation that came to those people, honestly, at times, I always say that it's God that does everything. Samia couldn't have come to this country.
Why do you say so?
Why I say so? Because of what was meted to even the family.
What did they do to them?
What happened?
They were really disgraced. Now from the Colonel Sarangu had wanted them to be at a safer place in the Egyptian embassy because the soldiers couldn't have entered the embassy. They couldn't have done it, as you know. So immediately arrested them, they took them to police headquarters. From there, they were deported.
Out of the country?
Exactly.
Same day, 24th February, 66.
They were deported. Look at the mental agony of Madam Fatia and the children.
The new government, known as the National Liberation Council, NLC, justified its action by citing Nkrumah's abuse of power, widespread political repression, sharp economic decline, and rampant corruption.
This coup was carried out completely because of the things that had happened in Ghana and because of the tyranny and the despotism of Kwame Krumah, the deposed president. Everybody in Ghana was fed up with it. And therefore you could see the spontaneous result which followed the coup.
It would be later revealed that the coup itself was the culmination of intense planning by the CIA, aided and abetted by MI5, the British intelligence service, and the infamous French intelligence apparatus operating under the political cover of the Quai d'Orsay and headed by Jacques Foccart. John Stockwell's, ex-CIA agent, former station chief in Ivory Coast, revealed in his book published in 1978, that the planning was largely the work of Howard T. Baines, the Accra CIA station chief, working undercover as a political officer at the U.S. Embassy. Baines had boasted to Stockwell's about his role and how there was no paper trail to be found that would incriminate the United States. The New York Times was able to conduct its own investigation to establish the veracity of Stockwell's revelations in his book, from first-hand, inside sources. Declassified documents from the U.S. government itself also attest to its complicity. The leaders of the February 24, 1966 coup established the new government around the National Liberation Council, NLC, and pledged an early return to a duly constituted civilian government.
Now, people are now crying. If Nkrumah is there, Ghana, but what, there's nothing you can do. You today, if they appoint you as a president today, people start talking about